Just days after 21 of his constituents, including 19 little children, elementary school children, were murdered by an AR-15 wielding gunman, podcaster Ted Cruz, also Republican Senator of Texas, will head to Houston to make an appearance with the organization which does a lot to make all this possible, the National Rifle Association. Ted Cruz and his A-plus rating from the NRA for his steadfast opposition to gun reform on the lobby's behalf, his willingness to read from their talking points in even the most tragic of circumstances. But of course, talking points only get you so far. When the British journalist Mark Stone of Sky News pressed Cruz for real answers, Ted Cruz fled the scene.
There are 19 sets of parents who are never going to get to kiss their child goodnight again.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
The proposals from Democrats in the media, inevitably, when some violent psychopath murders people.
A violent psychopath who's able to get a weapon so easily. 18-year-old with 2 AR-15s.
If you want to stop violent crime, the proposals the Democrats have, none of them would have stopped this.
But why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world just, they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
You know, I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
I think this aspect of it.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly,
God love you.
Senator, it's not. I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
Well, it is just an American problem, sir.
Mr. Cruz, why is America the only country that faces this kind of mass shooting?
But you can't answer that. You can't answer that, can you, sir? You can't answer that. Why is this country?
Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
It may be the freest, it may be the most
popular. Why are our kids dying in school?
It's not the safest on earth. It just isn't. I wish it were, but it's not. People actually voted for that guy. That's how Ted Cruz is one of 50 Republican senators who currently form, of course, the biggest roadblock to any meaningful or even not meaningful gun reform being passed to the Senate. He's being rewarded for that position with a speaking slot at the NRA convention tomorrow. Senator Tammy Duckworth is a Democrat from Illinois. She's an Iraq War veteran, member of the Armed Services Committee, and she joins me now. Senator, just first of all, what do you think about your colleagues going to address this convention on tomorrow?
Sickening, nauseating, but it's true to form because they care more about checks from the NRA than they do about 19 massacred children and all of the other children who've been massacred before today and the ones who will be massacred after today. It's only been 10 days since the shootings in New York, and we're going to have another mass shooting here, I'm sure, in the next couple of weeks if the pattern remains. And so, yes, I'm disgusted by it, but I'm not surprised because they continue to value checks from the NRA over the lives of little babies.
There's some talk, Chris Murphy is talking, and maybe McConnell's going to talk with someone. Senate's in recess till June 6th, so everyone's back in their district. I mean, there's a kind of learned helplessness that everyone has about this at this point, and you can't really blame them. You're one of 100 U.S. senators. How do you think about it? What are the prospects?
Well, I'm calling for us to suspend the filibuster and pass sensible gun legislation at the 50-vote minimum, at the 50-vote threshold, 51-vote threshold. I mean, we have a bill that's already passed the House that we could pass in the Senate. We can do anything if we put our minds to it. And by the way, 95% of Americans support universal background checks, getting rid of the gun show loophole. Ever since the assault weapons ban was allowed to expire, the number of mass shootings and deaths from mass shootings has tripled in this country. So there's two things we can do right there: is getting rid of assault weapons, reinstating the ban, and let's do universal background checks. That's a good start.
Let me sketch out the gun reform paradox as I understand it. So America has the highest level of gun ownership in the world. It's twice this next highest nation, which is Yemen per capita. We've got more guns than people. And guns are durable, right? They last for a long time. There's just a ton of guns out there. Meaningfully reducing gun violence in America would require some pretty significant changes to the policy landscape. But of course, that's not possible. It might not even be very popular. There are things that would matter, background checks, the things like in H.R. 8. But of course, the people who oppose further legislation understand that as the nose under the camel's tent, right? The camel's nose under the tent. Like, they get that that's the first opening salvo to try to get more, and so they don't want to do any of it. Like, how do you convince them otherwise?
Well, they need to listen to their constituents. 95% of Americans, including hunters and outdoorsmen and Republicans and even MAGA Republicans, some of them support universal background checks. This is not about the camel's nose under the tent, Chris. This is about politicians who care more about a check, a payday, a payoff from gun manufacturers than they do dead babies. That's the bottom line here. We're talking about getting rid of the assault weapon. Restoring the ban. We're talking about getting rid of high-capacity magazines. If that shooter had gone into that room full of little babies and didn't have two AR-15s, but had, a single handgun because he couldn't get his hands on two assault weapons at the age of 18, then we wouldn't have the high death rates that we do today. There's a lot that we can do right away. And frankly, my colleagues care more about a check in their account than they do about babies being killed while they're supposed to be at school.
How do you think about, what is your relationship to guns? How do you think about guns?
Well, I am a marksman. I actually have an expert marksmanship badge from the Army, and I grew up with guns. My dad was a world-class shooter and a judge at World Shooting Championships. That's where they belong. They belong out on the range. They belong in war. I carried an M16, later an M4 in my 23 years of service in the military. I've seen what these weapons do to adult bodies, let alone little babies' bodies. And, these colleagues of mine, at the drop of a hat, put a picture of a fetus on the floor of the Senate, blown up in giant poster-size format, and yet they refuse to look at what a little body that has been destroyed by an AR-15 looks like. It's hypocrisy at best, and I'm just disgusted by them. Look, there's things that we can do that would get the hands, assault weapons out of the hands of people who would come and commit these mass shootings. Again, as I said, just the assault weapons ban alone was, by allowing it to expire, has allowed the deaths from mass shootings to triple in this country. There's stuff that we can do. Chris, I spent the other night doom scrolling on my phone looking for ballistic-proof backpacks for my 4 and my 7-year-old and looking for ballistic-proof whiteboard markers that I could buy to donate to my kids' classroom. And guess what? It was already bookmarked because it's not the first time that I've looked it up. That's wrong. We shouldn't be in this situation.
Senator Tammy Duckworth, thank you so much for making time tonight. I appreciate it.